and whatever I see is smiling at me. Love is who I am. So hello there everyone, and welcome to this free course on mastering the marks of seership. This will be my entire knowledge of that which we call the great inception or the great deception. And it has taken me quite a few years to really delve deep into this topic, do my research, do my work of divine remembrance. And now at this point of divine synthesis, before we ready ourselves to enter into the creation of our new bodies, Spirit is showing me this is the necessary process we must all undergo in our own way. It's kind of like, what I feel for myself after I put this all out. It's like I will no longer be talking about it. It's time to move on. So this is like a synthesis of this entire topic of everything that's been so important. And Spirit wants me to address why this is so important at this time, particularly because this mass deception that's been going on for such a long time, and it's now coming into the great unveiling, and it's coming to the forefront for us to really witness it, is kind of pushing us to really become the own integral sovereign beings, which means the beings who function through the primary narrative of Source. And for us to truly do that, not only with our mind or the thinking process, but to literally build pathways of this light and how we process light as divine information through the multidimensional cognition. It is important to develop this, what I call the marks of seership, which means going beyond the veils of illusion and to enter into the multidimensional cellular cognition or our cellular knowingness. So I'm going to put on my glasses because my notes actually are so diverse. They're spread through the entire notebook. I've been in channeling mode for so long. I've been gathering, also observing some of the things that Spirit wanted me to also have as a part of this course. So maybe it's taken a bit longer than I initially thought. But this is all my inception knowledge, brought forth. And just recently we had a beautiful angelic session in which I was asking many questions and directly receiving answers and guidelines into why this course is so important to share. And they were assuring me that because of this phenomena of imprinted information that was basically structured and then designed, so, it's not coming through the primary narrative of our source, but it's coming through a program that through this mass deception people receive, and they think they're receiving it from source or angels or whatever kind of godly deities or beings. But we actually have to break through the wall. I have to actually crack through the walls of this falsehood in order to truly connect to our sovereign being, from which, in that space, we really connect through our divine essence and the essences that are also divine, which we all have within our very core. So they were showing me that there's still so much astral debris in the auric fields of many people. This astral confusion is a working of art. It took a long time to build because, as you know, the astral realms are constructed realms, and many things that exist within those realms, which were presented to humanity as realms of the reality, but it was only a partial reality. And because of this, people have taken that as their home. And we even talk about the so-called realms of heaven, the heaven versus earth. And I've shared this in my previous galactic update, these major inception points. And people think that's when they go back to source, but basically they just go to one layer of constructed reality. It's a hologram. And nowadays, how people are receiving information has to change, because otherwise we're not building the pathways of light through true source narrative design. And because of this astral confusion, this toxic debris that so many people have around them, they're just taking in information and without even filtering through what that's supposed to be in truth. It causes a lot of, it's almost like you have so much residual stuff, so much of what you actually don't need. It kind of messes with you, with your thinking, with your cognition processes, right? So nowadays we have a real danger of these influences that lie in a lot of this astral programming that's taking place in the invisible realms, what we call the realms of unseen. And yet it's there and it's controlling us from these spaces. So the angelics were assuring me that what we maybe sometimes perceive as external threats to us physically, they're also bigger threats, if we can call them like that, bigger distortions and manipulations of the reality that influence us, not necessarily in such an obvious way, but that these things are actually more hidden and therefore more dangerous because of the very fact that they're so well hidden and programmed in, which we've taken as it's natural, right? Even that whole life after death, recycling of souls, reincarnation, all of that is a part of it. So there's souls who still recognize that as the reality because they don't have a memory, their memory banks were kind of messed with, so they don't remember their first source. And because of that, they take that as the first experience. Therefore, it's something natural and organic, although necessarily it's not. So what we maybe sometimes consider as external sources of influence, like nowadays we have, massive kind of ways that they gather our data, information about us, also control via drones. Drones continue to get information from the environment and also us who walk within those spaces and environments. And sometimes I myself feel like, well, that's just a threat to my privacy. But the angelics were assuring me that even though it is, partially it is so, there's bigger threats that exist that are more, in case of us calling them vile, because they actually are so well hidden, and because of that they're more dangerous because people have less ability to recognize them. So for those of you who are walking into your self-mastery and you have been doing the work, you're now readying yourself to enter what it's called the marks of seership. For me to say more about this, I have to go back to 2011, and this was actually the year of epiphanies for me, before 2012 actually began, which was the year when the great unveiling started really to unfold. And I started actually to walk this path of inception and revealing this great deception back then. And I was actually told in a galactic shaman reading that I have marks of seership myself and that I have a galactic origin position in my natal chart, which makes me makes me aware of certain things within the light of truth that other people don't yet see, and therefore it's not a part of their natural or daily cognition processes. So in this reading, I was told that I have these marks of seership, and at that time I didn't, fully, know what it means. I thought it's just a part of natural intuitive processes. But I was told these are intuitive gifts that others don't have and possess, that, not just anyone can, of course, tap into, but most people are not at the level where that is naturally, it's like naturally allowed for them, because they're not in the space of that allowance. They have not created that within their templates yet. So now with all this shifting energy, and as you know, I think this is the perfect time for this, because we have Mercury going retrograde now, just as Venus went back direct, and Mercury now does so in the sign of Sagittarius. Right when Jupiter also went back into its native sign of Sagittarius that it rules over. And I also have my own Jupiter in Sagittarius, and I have a Jupiter rising because I have an ascendant in Sagittarius, which means Jupiter is in a way my ruling planet in so many ways. And this is now the search for deeper illumined truth. And I really discovered just recently that Mercury actually goes retrograde in 13 degrees of Sag, which is exactly my point, my degree in chart, where my ascendant begins. So I took that as a time to bring this work to a closing by putting all my knowing here, sharing all that I know, also what maybe some other sources have assisted me with to help spark up my own knowing. And what I do is I take that and receive my own inner channel wisdom as a result of that merging process. So now we're in times where we have the ability to walk into what is called pure spirit knowing versus this program reality, which functions as a hologram. So for me, to start off here, I want to first show you what this means, because I have a drawing here that shows the nature of a hologram and the nature of the wall, right? And in comparison to the great spiral, which is the source reality or the source code. So reality, the very nature of reality, is a spiral. As you know, all galaxies, everything looks exactly as the representation of that spiral. So now in this hologram, program reality, it feels like our reality is like this one ball, right? We're contained within the circle. What that means is that because the circle is a finite form of expression, there's such a thing as a membrane or a wall, right? So we eventually get to the point where we get to a wall. We're either being recycled, and that's the whole notion of the recycling or the reincarnational wheel for the souls. Or there's this great spiral of spirit, which you can see here, right, that I've been drawing. And this is a natural pathway, the way reality is organically created. It's a reality of spirit, which is pure life force. It's a pure essence of life. Where in the hologram reality, there is a feeling that there's always a sense of something or things being finite. Even our consciousness feels finite here. Therefore, we feel a sense of powerlessness, and we don't feel the connection to source. And that's what the majority of the people still feels like. So the wall is this membrane that creates a certain form of, we can't penetrate, or we can't go beyond this. And if we take the example of our earth, right, we see a part of the sky, we call that our atmosphere, and we can't see beyond that unless we use a certain, I don't know, vehicle through which we travel even beyond that. But this, of course, is not about our physical reality. This talks about the very nature of creation principles and the laws that govern the universal force of light and love, which makes it the nature of truth. And how reality truly is formulated as a spiral. So if we're not a part of the spiral, which is the wave motion expression of the new human, which is the organic human that was always designed in its primary creative utilization or manifestation, and the humans that kept on, being convinced that this is the only reality. Therefore, they have been playing the reality in a limited playground, which doesn't make the reality unreal. When we say or use the words as illusion, that doesn't mean what souls experience within the hologram is not real. It's just not real from a standpoint that this is not reality at its true ultimate position of source code, which means there's missing links there that until we become our own sovereign, we can't reach for it, right? We can't have that at our disposal. We can't access that. So we eventually hit something in a wall, and that's what people will experience this as things always happening in a cyclical way. Time is being recycled. Time happens in these cyclical experiences. Even when we talk about certain cycles of time, they always feel like, okay, they're cyclical. Something happens and then it's a repetitive thing. One example would be us now replaying a program that was built in, a program of doomsday and a program of, this consciousness, which is constructed reality, which is the uses of power and technology that rules over or against the very nature of our organic life force and the way life naturally evolves through life force, which is pure spirit essence. So this is one of the programs that keeps on repeating, and because it was kind of like stopped temporarily in terms of the Atlantean ending, right? The end times of that time or that epoch. It's now just being replayed, and with same players, just different timeline, things appearing to be different from our position, but it's happening within the hologram. So for us to break through this, right, and break free, we have to really get into our body in a way that we crack the codes of this hologram within our own living vessel. So recently I've channeled this guidance, and it was actually basically left for the end, but I'm going to bring it up in the beginning, and we're going to probably end there as well. We're going to do the whole circle, right? Is recently Spirit has shared these words with me. There is no other way out but in. So a lot of us who hold this knowledge, we are sovereign beings ourselves, and I use the term volunteer soul, which basically means a soul being or a being of light that is already free and liberated from any sort of external structures that would govern its life force or that would manipulate or use its life force for their own purposes, right, of willpower. So these beings basically volunteered at this time to bring forth the gift of their own soul, sovereign liberation through their bodies, which they can then, of course, intercept with the existing points of inception. So with their own breaking free from that, they could assist other beings who have maybe never done this before. In the so-called Wingmakers interviews with a being called Dr. Neruda, and he presents his knowledge in a very structured form, very fluid, not very deterministic, and also very open from any perspectives when you listen with your heart. It's been talked about the fact that up until this point, except for those few avatar beings, no human who's actually a part of this hologram experience is the very beginning of its making or its creation, which basically I don't call creation, but the point of inception. So it was a hijacked reality that then started playing within this limited constructed realm, right? And no human actually managed to escape that. And we're going to see why, because this is not something we can escape. This is something we must acknowledge for what it is. And because of what it is, and its very nature, how it can trigger us and our own natural way of being, it can trigger us into becoming so resilient, so powerful that we actually remember who we are. So it's like waking up within a matrix and cracking through the wall. So this is now so important at this time, because where we are as a collective is we're being bombarded and flooded with information. I've shared this infinite amount of times. And this is why I was actually called and to offer this course freely. And it is, in a way, an invitation into the new human body. So the new human body video course that will be as a result of all of my knowledge and birthing as well. So I wanted to share this unconditionally with all of you. If it will or it does assist you in any way, because it will be quite a long process, as you will see, and you do benefit from that, I give you the unconditional reference. So the way I share it unconditionally, you also can unconditionally contribute to the creation of what I'm making here. You can, from your own heart space, choose how you will support this work if it benefits you, if you feel you've benefited from it, because you have your choice, because you're also a sovereign being, right? To choose that, to choose the way you express gratitude and energy reciprocation, and the way you value and you see this, right, as your internal value system that does, use its own will to recognize this and kind of equate for the experience of what you receive from the course itself, so that it can be an equal energy exchange. So that's why I'm leaving it like this, and it's kind of like a prerequisite. Because this unveiling, this stepping out of this mass inception reality is our pathway into the new sovereign reality, the reality we're birthing together, individually and collectively, as sovereign divine beings, which does not happen within our minds, but we are literally using this knowledge, this courage of using it in our embodied form to move forward. So I want to start quickly by talking about what does the word marks of seership truly mean, because I know a lot of people use the word psychic medium, visionary, seer, prophet, and they use these words nowadays very lightly. And this is why Spirit has indicated the importance of this course, because we're taking things so lightly and we're throwing everything in one box. Someone says they're psychic doesn't mean they're reading the realms of illumined truth. Okay, so psychic energy, I've shared so many times, not the same as pure spirit-born creation and our connection with it through our own source code. So these things, right, are for us very important to watch over at this time, to see ourselves through this process. I have one example, because recently someone told me, they made a comment about me doing like a sleep hypnosis and kind of helping people to enlighten themselves or something like that en masse, because someone is doing something and I should be doing something in the same way through these theta waves or something. And when I read those words, something just felt so off. First and foremost, because no one can walk through the experience or make you become enlightened or whatever. This truly does not exist in the reality of the sovereign integral being, because this in no way works or supports the divine truth that needs to be born through you. So what I will share with you today, still use within your own domain of knowing. Use it to move through what will move you through into the new experience, and take it as a reference point. But what's really important is to find a place that functions for you, that really works for you, okay? So we are in times where we really need to move beyond this, someone telling us or giving us the ultimate truth. Because the more we want the truth as an ultimate, the less we are actually in our own core. The more we're actually drifting away from that which is our own position in truth, which is our sovereign experience of that truth. So we have been kind of misled through many scriptures or programs that have been giving us these solutions and realizations that you as a human, right, in this hologram, right? Because here, as you can see, everything is built in layers. I will show you another picture later, another drawing. But also within this hologram, there's many layers of reality. And we have been convinced as human beings that it can only be walked through in steps, right? So you have to learn these lessons to get to the next step and the next step and the next step. And this creates this infinite journey that you as a human basically can never complete. And if you ever do, you just join the Hall of Masters and become a teacher of others. And it's like the prototype for the mass inception, and especially in terms of spirituality, how spiritual truth is designed, because the hologram does not just cover physical reality, resources, all of that that's being sold to us, fed within us internally through our subconscious realms, which are deeply in tune with this hologram through our mind structure, because the mind was created, this aspect that I talk about as the lower mind was created in alignment with this hologram. So it basically receives from the hologram. And that's why the masters are telling you to ease up and slow down this mind, the lower mind, because it always relates to the hologram, because it was basically constructed within it. So it can't reach this greater spiral of spirit. And this is not something to reach through a certain redemption or an absolute method or something, not at all. But basically, everyone must find their own exit point, which means the only way out is in. So because of this, right, we need to understand that the way to become sovereign is through our own inner realm. And this is what it means. No one can give you the ultimate truth, because the moment you expect it to come from the outside, you will be actually programming yourself and just going deeper into this abyss. So these layers that are created as this multiple layers of reality are selling this reality as something so complex that you, as this poor little human that's basically powerless, you can never access, and you can never have what is called the cosmic understanding of truth and universal knowledge through the principles of creation. And this is why I'm here, because this is a huge part of my mission to bring back the idea that the principles of creation exist within every fabric of life. They're embedded within every one of us. It's just that our DNA makeup was so distorted that it was kind of like falsified to a degree where we were no longer able to fully recognize it for what it is. So to really know what this means, right, to have mastership abilities, to be a master seer, has nothing to do with simply just developing intuition. Because even intuition, what they have shown me, even intuition can be used within a hologram. Everything, what the hologram basically what it did is the makers of it, they have written it in a form that they've taken everything from the truth, because you basically, for you to build realities, you have to work through the principles of truth. Otherwise, you can't build anything. But there's something that distorts the original code. So the truth is only accessible to a few if you have that key, which in our own bodies, that key was hidden. So we, as normal people, right, the people who was not writing these programs, we couldn't access, although the universal consciousness is always there for all. So that was the basic hack, right, the basic catch. That meant that, everything that exists in the spiritual truth was taken and recreated within the hologram. So they've taken everything such as, things like reincarnation, right? But it wasn't no longer like the spiraling wheel of life, but it was reincarnation placed within a certain circle. And this is what people still mostly do not understand. At a very high rate, they do not. And they think it's just natural and normal. Well, it is, but it still exists within a hologram. And if that's what you choose, it is natural to you. But the moment you free yourself and you understand that you are a free spirit being and spirit functions as a great spiral of life, you yourself, you want to function as the spiral of life does, because you're being a spirit, you're a free spirit. So because of that, everything was taken, right? The concept of angels, masters, intuition, the Akashic field, the Akashic records, all of that. And in one of my activations through the solar logos, I've provided an activation in which you also create the inner Akashic realm, which is your innate sovereign library. These are true record hall expressions of your sovereignty that no one else would have access to but you. Because in the great hologram now, nowadays in the new age, everyone can read your Akashic field. Well, of course, because there's readers that use their clairvoyant or psychic gifts to tune into this reality, but it is many layers within it, so they would read it differently depending what kind of layer of structure they are currently able to access. But still, what they're tapping into exists within a hologram, and that is very difficult for people to understand. And that's why I never went to psychic readers. I never allowed anyone to read me. I wasn't even allowed through spirit because they always told me I have to stay pure and within my own domain. So let's get to the first thing that we need to understand, right, to support this journey of divine truth is first and foremost this intuition, which basically means inner knowing and inner cognition, which is our inner tuition, the way we're being taught through ourselves. So how can we liberate ourselves, beginning with what we call intuition? I have one recent example of how what we would call the functioning, the operational system of what we actually live, what exists in our body within our framework, because we first require framework, right? How this functions when it's pure of any external influences, beliefs, convictions, programs. It just simply flows. And recently I had a beautiful experience that I can use as an example because I'm doing for a while now these channeled spirit drawings that are happening in real time. Because that's the first thing to know here is that this access towards our inner core can only happen in real time. And people who exist here, right, they say, well, I am in real time, right? I am now, I'm present. Everyone else says I'm present. Yes, but there's still a catch here. Is because you're present here, right? Right? And you say, this is my focal point. But your extension of that presence only is able to reach the levels of this hologram. So you're present, but your presence still cannot break through the hologram. Okay, and recently I had a dream guidance. I woke up from a dream and the words were, did you ever see the end of the wall? Did you ever see, right, the wall? And then I remembered that basically Pink Floyd have a song called The Wall. It's time to break down the wall, something like that. And it was a very popular song. So this is the catch here, okay? It's not enough for us to have real presence here, be present now. The now as a concept sounds very catchy, very beautiful, right? But it's not just, it's almost like saying I'm awake. Yes, but where are we really awake to? What are we waking up to? This is what a lot of people are not considering. You can be awake, but still you're awake within the hologram. And for people, it's very hard to accept that and to accept the fact that the astral planes they have been created for the management, right? Because we're not only managed at the physical level in terms of we call the elite or these systems or the controllers of those select few individuals who govern the reality in the physical realm, but there is also a management that goes beyond or extends beyond the physical realm, and it's what it is. It's just how it is. So for you to be a sovereign, it's not enough to just exist in the point of, catchiness of the now. It's like a nice popular catch phrase now. But for you to bring your presence to the alignment of the spiral, for me, the only real time embodiment, or what I call the real time, is the embodiment of the spiral. And for us to be there, we have to align with the great universal life force of spirit, cultivate our own life force through spiritualization of the life force that lives in our current physical body, to get it to align with the spiraling consciousness. And once this process is done, I feel this is what spirit means by saying we're moving into the new body, because the new body is fully existing or is created from the template of the spiral, where the old body functions here as a unit that is always disposable. Okay, so the body dies, you go back, and it's always the repetitive circle. So this is the next thing. So you can be intuitive, but you have to extend the way of intuition beyond what you call this hologram and receive from that level. Because I was always shown that there's many psychics out there, and yes, they do have vision. It's not necessarily the highest gift. The gift is to have vision beyond this. This is the real gift, and this is what I was shown in, especially in that reading. I have a gift of seeing beyond the veil. This is what master marks of seership truly mean. So for us to go beyond the wall, we're going to be doing that in this course. We're going to be talking about some things and this multi-layered cognition and how to awaken ourselves within our body, because the cells is that which creates our physical body every day anew. And it's our consciousness that assists this process. It initiates this process. So we might say, I'm a visionary. I see, right? I see pictures. I see images. Yeah, you can watch them like movies on a screen. Some people have the gift. But a lot of these have been pre-programmed. And so people who are very predictable, who have been, let's say, existing in this hologram, or they have been reincarnating for so long, people who are extremely psychic to that degree, they can easily access their lifetimes, their repetitive programs, because these people have become in a way so manageable. They've become so predictable that it's easy to read them. So I have to share this with you, that no one in my life so far, even people who've tried, they were able to read me. And this is not for me to say, oh, I'm so special, but it's because I don't function in this hologram. And even people who've been telling me things, they themselves were like, they were a little confused. They didn't know where to reference me. So it's like coming across an example like this, it's for a lot of people who are volunteer souls. We cannot be read. People might get ideas, but they're just simply using the first closest thing that comes into mind in terms of referencing us and reading us, but it's still not really our own process. It's not really us, what they're reading. So one example recently with these drawings I've shared with you was that I made a drawing of a volcano. It was in the sea, and it had lotus flowers, and it started to erupt. And I didn't know anything about it because I don't watch the news. I hardly even open Facebook anymore. And so one day I just click on this video, and it talks about this volcano in Krakatoa in Indonesia. And I was taken aback, like, how did I draw this? It was like exactly that. And it was a childlike drawing. This is how I draw. My reality is very simple, because for me, source code is very simple. It's based on love and the principles of creation. And the way it flows through, it mimics that exactly. And it was just one more confirmation of what really being a visionary means. It's not to get pictures or ideas that you're actually reading, simply just you're reading it from this hologram, but you're receiving from the spiral, which is the real time. And for you to bring your presence, your awareness into this real time, first demands of you to basically all these aspects, right? Because of this, you lived here, there, you like people had the experience. So they've been around the wall, they've been around the block, let's say it, right? So the first thing that we need to do is take all these aspects, and this is what people call like taking the soul fragments and these aspects and liberating themselves. And it's like liberating them, right? Through being aligned with the self. So you do that by taking them into the core, right? And the core is, that's the sentence, what it meant. The only way out is in. It's bringing all this back into this, what it's called the implosion of our consciousness through the working of the synthesis. So this is the it's a predecessory step to what ascension in the physical truly means, because ascension, again, also exists just as a false program, which tells you ascend through the ladder of whatever, and you come back to source or the heaven, and then you're there singing or praising the angels. And then what? Reality is always like this. And there's a lot of people who still believe that. I mean, a lot. And even the whole idea of the New Age kind of ascension is a hoax, because, again, it's something that's offered within a hologram, because the way hologram is designed is like there's something for everyone. So people who would say, oh, I don't find satisfaction with religion or this and that, they quickly go to the New Age, and it sounds, ooh, that sounds better. Ooh, I'm going to take that. Program sold. Check. And for us to really move beyond it, this is quite an arduous journey, I have to tell you. So not a lot of souls have been brave enough to take even the initiatory few steps. And that's why in the interview from the wing makers, this person has been saying that it was from the wind maker's perspective, which was in that time capsule, it was shared that none of the souls were actually able to do that. This means the souls that have been going through these experiences of reincarnation in the hologram, not those that have access this realm of earth beyond the hologram, and these I call the volunteer souls. So let's go back to intuition. I gave you one example of seeing clearly with purity, like I received that vision. I didn't know it was a vision, I was just drawing. Because a lot of people, they have this program, like, I want to get this answer, I want to see this vision, please God give me, right? And they don't even know first and foremost what they're asking, because a lot of concepts of God are not truly sourced as that pure love, that it's like pure essence of spirit, which is the infinite eternal spiral of life. So what they're actually asking might be one of the masked gods that say, okay, we will give you this and you will use it for this and that. And we're, how we have many examples of people becoming famous overnight, because people sometimes call this like selling your soul to the devil, but it's beyond that. It's not so morbid, right? It just means that you have a certain contract to work for the hologram itself. It's like you continue the hallmark of this reality as it being, it being the thing that is the only thing there is. So there's a lot of souls working for that, and a lot of them who have these contracts. And there's also those of us who are free, independent freelancers, if you know what that means, and we are in service of that spiral of life, of spirit. So intuition, in terms of mastering your inner knowledge, means that first and foremost, it has to go back to the core essence of who you are. So your intuition has to flow beyond all what you would consider to be the angelics, the different masters, all of that. If that in any way or case still comes from the outside experience, or let's say a reading you did, someone told you something about you, reading esoteric materials, it's like a starting point, but a lot of that is not what we on the journey of the sovereign are truly here for. So how to discern, right? They gave me only one answer. People would say, well, then how do I know what's real? How do I know what's true and what's false and what to listen to? First and foremost, when you work to becoming your own sovereign and have established within you marks of seership, means your journey will have to be within. Which means leaving behind all concepts of what, who to trust, where to get guidance, readings, all of that. Temporarily, it's like almost like you're temporarily putting that on hold until you develop your own sense of knowing to the degree, perfection and refinement that you know this is it, this is your knowing, so that nothing outside will ever have a chance to mess with you anymore. You'll be a real sovereign badass, if you know what I mean. So for us to discern what is sovereign, what is not, the only answer or solution is we have to become sovereign ourselves. And that's quite a journey and undertaking. And because people want to have this created for them, or just happen naturally, or just be handed on a silver platter, that doesn't happen for most. We have many cases of people who overnight they supposedly wake up, and before they've experienced immense depression, anxiety, they had trauma, they almost died. Some people were even suicidal, and then they said, this entity woke me up and brought me back to life and all of that. And this always feels a bit suspicious to me, because they don't want people to exit, they don't want people to start questioning through experiences like life traumas. So a being or an entity will appear and say, oh, look, you just need to do this and that and follow those steps and your life will be back in order. And there's a lot of things like that, and people even channeling these entities as a result of their life trauma or something happening. But basically what they're showing me is that the consciousness, that it's so low in the human at that point when people go through these mass traumas in their life, immense traumas, this energy at that level is so low that person can really call in or invoke through their system. They can have a cognitive process through sovereignty. So a lot of times they're connecting certain entities that maybe they're not always serving their highest good. That's all I'm saying here. So for us to go into the mastery of intuition as an inner tuition, it really means it has to be inner. That's the true meaning of intuition. So sometimes we will have to first dissolve all the concepts, new agey constructs, fast solutions, easy answers, and really sacrifice that, the path of the external, quick satisfaction, to get really on the other side and exit as a master of seership. So there is a difference between the voice of lower mind and intuition, and sometimes people don't discern, right? And how we also can be confused, because anything coming outside of us like a signal, influence, even a voice you hear in your head can be manipulated and distorted. So the cellular knowingness is the only way that you truly can utilize your sovereign being, which means that the voice within you is more a subtle voice. It's more a feeling. And it's a benevolent neutral force that is not either working for the light nor for the dark. It's beyond polarity. And this is what illumined guidance means. So even in my own process, when I first entered into my own awakening, I had a lot of this guidance. Then it was, for a while, it was completely withdrawn from my experience. I didn't feel I'm connecting to anything or anyone temporarily. For a while, I was like on pause. But this was like my initiation through the gates of really mastering my own sovereign voice and trusting myself to a fault. That means like it had to be refined to the very last drop, right? It had to be really, really clearly embodied. And then the illumined guidance from the team, and I call it my mission team, started to reappear more because I was ready to trust first through my own sovereign nature. So it is a pathway. This is what I'm indicating here, that the first awakening that people often take as the final awakening, and yet it's not. You have to go through immense sacrifice to initiate these spirit initiations, to really be the one. You have what it takes, right? And it's quite a process. So how can we go into this, right? And beyond the external influences that can get so infiltrated and distorted, it's the mastery of the inner voice as not only one, right, that we prefer and what we want to hear, but combining and unifying all voices as one, that is a prerequisite to developing the awareness of pure knowing and knowing without knowing. So that's the kind of refined knowing when you just know. And you don't have to see visions like psychics do, because like I said, it's easy for psychics to use their gift. And they have been using it before because they have also been in the hologram many times, and they have learned how to access points of reference, which I'm going to show you in the next picture. So seemingly two different people would give you similar vision because they're just accessing your reference points, but they're accessing kind of like points in your hologram, and they're kind of the way they function. This is how spirit shows me, is they're using the kind of, it's kind of like the inner technology, right, of understanding. So they're reading your energy, and because your energy has been recycling for so long, you've developed patterns of predictability, so they can read it for you. And that's why in my case what they've been saying never happened, because I don't exist in the hologram. They did not know it because my Elohim light family have told me that I have a shield in which people cannot access me, my true core, and they cannot read me because of that. In the past, I was so sad because I thought no one can read for me. And then when I realized and I woke up to this mass inception, I was actually so grateful for the gift, because I felt that I have what it takes, and it's my mission to teach, share, right, this teaching of this pure cognizance, which is based on seeing through spirit vision. I also have a mastery course called Aligning with Spirit, so that you can start to receive from the essence of spirit itself. And that if you do connect with angelic masters, different councils of light, even different extraterrestrial beings, you will do so beyond the hologram. So this will not be an inception. It will not be a point of someone having that program that for you. Okay, you want to write your own programs. That's what sovereigns do. So what's important here, what is required, is pure observation, sorry, contemplation, detox. That's what I referred to before, astral confusion. We have a lot of layers. People have layers and layers of astral debris. In the physical, we don't see that. If you really go to a healer who sees within, sorry, within clarity, they sometimes can see that, an access point of inception. But we also need to do our own work through allowance, reflection, complete surrender, which means surrender of all these beliefs of no, this is what it is. I know what I know. For us to truly know beyond knowing, we have to let go of everything we think we know. Because there's aspects of the mind that was designed this way, was programmed this way, that hold on so tightly that till the last degree they will convince you this is it, this is right, this is right, and they will kind of be very resistant to the process of true ascension. And we all have that, even most of all beings who entered beyond the hologram, but we still go through the human body process. So we take all the same imprints and we have to do the same work. The difference is that our consciousness is more up to speed or up to date with the real spiral nature of the source code and the reality of spirit, so we can access that prematurely in a way, and we can create these pathways and therefore assist others to step onto them. So we also require pure trust flow, so that our cognition becomes not only soul attuned but spirit based. So that's the thing. We don't just want the recycling of soul, round and round and round we go, right? There's a song, but we really want to be in the triad of spirit, soul, and body, and to be in that complete triangulation process of that design, which is the ultimate source design. That's what the Trinity of Life means. And it's not about the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, like the church interprets it in their own way, but it's truly this complex establishment as the home base. So our body is the vessel, the soul is the experiencer, and then the spirit is that infusion of life force that is not recycled anymore, because once you tune into spirit, it's a free flow, it's an unconditional relationship. So I had a session just recently, and the guidance that came forth was very, it's very simple though, because the first point of inception, beyond all the other, layouts in the hologram, was that there was a conviction, there was an inbuilt program that tells those who enter the body from that point of inception onwards, that the only way for them to truly have an experience of matter, of physicality, is to be fully enmeshed in their human bodies, which made them all of a sudden finite beings. So there's infinite beings of source, of unity consciousness entering the body, through the major birthing portal of inception. And they started to experience themselves as finite from that point onward. And it's beautifully explained in the 5th interview of the Wingmakers with Dr. Neruda, this primary inception or hoax. And because of that, we haven't really owned our bodies. For eons of time, humans couldn't own their bodies. They couldn't own their cognitive processes in the bodies. And now there's such a huge emphasis on the new body and how we build that platform, because it's time. You can't go have ascension or anything like that within the hologram. It might be an experience, but it's not a real-time experience. It's programmed in, and it's happening, it's playing in your mind, but it's not really real in real time. Your whole body, soul, spirit triad does not experience that. So therefore, this focus now on the new body, and I'm going into this new body, the new ascended body course, is on aligning with spirit through our bodies, right? So as we attune to source consciousness via the I am and we are, so the I am, in terms of the Wingmakers also, they're referencing this as the individual process, and the we are, right, is the collective process. So the sovereign is the inner process, the integral is what concerns all of us. So when we establish this template, we begin to restructure ourselves and our cognitive processes, which is not just our brain, right, which is the center of linear processing, but also our heart. And the heart is the link between the higher and lower realms. So the core and the entire nervous system that feeds us information. So we're basically creating a blank slate template, and this is what this means. For us to even have an idea of the marks of seership, we have to go into the blank slate template. And we can only do that through pure surrender and allowance. And it's possible to be free of all notions from past memory and processing, okay? An example would be, my experience is such because of ... or this is possible for me only this way because ... because you have a memory of these certain points of your own inception, so where you've entered physicality and you think only this is therefore possible. So within this field of understanding reality, you cannot ascend. So this moves us away from the limited thinking, processing information, and being conditioned. And we want to move into feeling in a liberated way as source is. It's pure, it's benevolent. There is no conditioning, judgment, assumption. It is not built on the system of duality. This whole hologram is built on duality. You might call it, it's yin and yang, yeah, plus minus. But the way it's been designed in this reality is through divide and conquer. And it's through one energy always has to override the other. So if you have an explanation, yes, in one age, the feminine energy overruled the masculine. In this age, the masculine overrules the feminine. In this, it's like an equation that was built in the program of this hologram was there always is an overriding force. That's what duality means. There is no room for unity here. But the unity is all permeating anyway. It exists, right? Even though this hologram is in place, there's still this spiral. The problem is that the individual beings who are having these experiences through soul incarnation, they cannot access it because they're programmed into this is the way it is, right? Because of this conditioning. And they're talking about the free will, but their will is not free at all when it's existing in this hologram. So the way the free will truly functions for us as individual, free spirit beings is you utilizing your free will, meaning you can access your creative power with great reverence and benevolence and the power to create. And it's in a liberated way. It's not to rule over or to control another. Therefore, you exist in this unity consciousness, and that's true higher will. But the free will that was presented to earthly humans in this form of inception is something totally different. And it's really not free, so hence the word is total paradox. So we have to restructure our informational highway and feeds, right? How we process information. I have a course called Multidimensional Ascension, which it's a more higher perspective of this process. So the way ascension is presented beyond this new age ascension, right? So you I don't know what you even do, right, to get to this hierarchy of light that supposedly exists. But the way spirit shows it to me, there is no hierarchy, there is no one above the other. There is simply a universal harmony, and this universal harmony is always fueled through this life force charge. Is this essence of spirit. So if you're not really aligned to spirit, but your idea of the spirit is, let's say, the church or the Bible kind of spirit representation, which is, again, it's enclosed in the space. It's like you're a fish in a fishbowl. You're in a fish tank. And, you know, in this interview, they also said that the funny thing is that the last thing fish will notice is water because it's so obvious, right? So something similar here. It's like we don't notice certain things because they're so obvious and so close to us. That's why we have to withdraw, right? That's why we have to go in order to go out. So the new way, right, of the sovereign being is multidimensional processing. And it's about creating a new framework in how we actively process, which means receive and emit information. And because of that, for us to even go into that, we have to change our operational system. So people talk about multidimensional consciousness. Yes, it exists, but are you able to bring it into your human form? That's the question here, right? So if you don't get an operational system upgrade, and in this case, multidimensional ascension means you have to attune to the spiral, not the hologram. It's quite a work, right? So it's like moving from one operational system into the other. If you think of things like Windows, right? They had their upgrades, but we are still in a primary system, right? So it's not just an upgrade from one to the other, but it's rather now in this new body human, a creation of a completely new operational system. This is what they're referencing. This is what they were showing me. So it's like you have in these interviews a representation of the human 1.0, right? The first inception human bodies. Later there was a flooding, they created a human 2.0. They want to create now this transhuman with a 3.0, but now we're responsible for truly creating a 3.0 human in our own way through our own sovereign. So there's a splitting happening now at this timeline with a third version, right? And with this divine intervention that we are this divine intervention, truly, those of us who are aware, there is an occurrence of the human multidimensional sovereign integral, and we have to travel all the way to the very core to have that occur. So at this point, I want to read you what I've been writing about the multidimensional cognition process for what it truly is, and before we continue further. So we are now moving into the awareness of our seership abilities and inner knowing without knowing, that is also called cellular knowingness. It is from the sacred state that we make a connection to the divine mind. And it's also a state of consciousness that many great seers or prophets connected to as they receive divine visions from the wholeness of life. These visions sometimes come as visual imprints or subconscious visions, but more often they enter into our reality as subtle impressions or feelings. These are orchestrated through our higher self and are often deeply symbolic and archetypal. The awareness which best receives them is the so-called blank slate awareness, in which our lower mind does not interject and project with its assumptions, which are usually stimulated by signals and thought processes based on past experiences. The divine mind cognition can only be accessed in real time, called the now, the great nano, or the quantum hyperspace reality, where this is all accessed relatively fast in an organic and natural way, in which the lower mind has no time to process it, so it cannot interject, right? Like I did with the painting of the volcano, drawing. So for us to reach that awareness of the great seership, we have to remain in a state of absolute purity and deep observation through benevolent neutrality. We have to observe everything as it simply comes and goes without passing any judgment onto it. And only in this way our seership abilities will exponentially grow without us trying hard or wanting to reach a certain state or level. Levels are fake, right? So the more natural or neutral we are, the better. In our multidimensional and not linear approach of consciousness cognition, we always follow the flow of spiral embodiment. This means we don't take anything into our awareness in a structured linear fashion, but rather we're taking things in as we feel called to do in each now moment, which totally reshapes our time framework. So that's what I said. The only way out of this existing program reality is we have to build new pathways. Therefore, we are the ones responsible for it. So this will reshape our time framework from within, right? So because everything is interconnected, we're accessing different portions of information that are required for our conscious cognition in each framework accessing. This means that nothing is missing because it all comes to us in perfect real time, known as divine time. And again, this goes back to the whole spiral, right? Instead of this circle. So yes, this way, we're not only taking things into our awareness, but we're creating our own way in how and when we take information as light particles in. So we're the ones that are in charge of this process, right? This is like creating our own platform or cognition rather than following or pursuing information in a linear way. That is the old concept that's based on duality framework. In unity consciousness, everything functions through perfect divine symmetry and synthesis. That's how multidimensional cognition feels like. We're naturally going through adjustments and integration periods gradually so we can allow ourselves to experience our own free flow of expansion because our soul knows. For great understanding, we have to tap into the mystery of life and spirit. And truly, spirit is so mysterious, and that's why the spirit code or the source code cannot be cracked. Like you cannot basically eliminate the platform and create something completely, out of it. You always use, even the hologram, like I said, it uses aspects of the truth, the source code, but then it uses forms of inception and distortion points that would kind of mess up our whole idea of it. So we can't access it fully so that people would say, well, I'm in tune with the angels or guides or whatever. But it still flows within a limited bandwidth. And this is where the issue is. And even people who are psychics, healers, all of that, a lot of them still function within the hologram, as beautiful or light beings they are. They still have not mastered the art of seership to move beyond and to be fed with true spirit light fully through the principle of this spiral in real time always. So as we attune to source consciousness via the I am we are, right, we begin to restructure ourselves and our cognitive processes, which is not just our brain, like we said, but it's like the whole area. So we now use the word the mind, sometimes in the same alignment like we call the brain. But the brain is simply a biological form or unit, right? While the mind is something that is a different construct. It's not a biological form, right? A mind is one part through which that flows, right? With these processes through the biological form or unit called the brain, right? So this mind, right, that has been a part of this built up reality cannot use its own narrative to exit out of the reality. You see, that's where the only way out is in. So the mind wants to, when people first awaken to this, that's where there's a fear reaction to this. We're going to talk about that in the second part. People want to escape this, right? Instead of going within and do the inner work that comes as a result of the triggering process of being aware, wow, I actually was functioning and I thought this was the only reality. There's nothing wrong with it. But there is no judgment to this process. It was simply one aspect of creation that, whatever occurred, it's what it is. But for us to move beyond it means that we have to surrender this judgment, because the fear that's kind of like a part of this experience will want you first to break through the wall. It will want to escape the wall, right? It will want to break through and break out. And this is what actually creates resistance. But what we truly need is resilience, not resistance. So we're going to talk about that. For us to have that platform of higher understanding, it means when we're triggered into this knowing, when we remember, we're usually going to go through the process of major unveiling in one initiation after the other. And all of these will be built or designed through our soul codex, our soul understanding, the wisdom of our soul that always is fed through the realms of illumination or illumined truth, that will point us towards us hacking these, as I could call them, life hacks. So everything that still is limited and finite in relation to truth as it really is, as in union with all life and spirit. So at this point, we come across what we call timelines, right? We say, oh, these are different timelines, and people talk about timelines, right? We all talk about timelines, but even timelines are certain potentialities that exist within a hologram, and because we look at we view certain aspects, and that's what psychics do. They access the timelines that your soul already has built in, right? You have different timelines where your energy can choose and in which direction to go. So they're reading that, and they're giving you or selling you this as your ultimate truth, or it's saying this will happen to you, or you will attract this. And this does not really make you sovereign. It does not assist your process. So timelines within time-space continuum are linear facets of viewing, right, reality. So then we have also crossing timelines, and these are the points of intersection. Example would be that many seers who have stumbled into a vision while entering into a particular state of consciousness, which allowed them that, right, so they could enter, they were then remote viewing, but not always intentionally. One example would be a spontaneous trance that's just induced through a certain experience or an out-of-body state. One example, and also in the books from Barbara, what's called The Mind Chronicles, is from Prophet Enoch, right? Who wrote also the Keys of Enoch. But what we're working on at this time now is creating the body prototype, right? That doesn't require a particular technique or an altering of the mind, right, in order to access something that exists outside of the platform of the hologram. But what naturally would align always to the internal divine narrative of our prime source experience, which is the I am, we are. This means that this would be present within the body. So herein, right, within the body makeup. So all that is the spirit, with different points of reference that then extend into reality much wider and broader than this. So when you go to a psychic and then tell you something and this would resonate with you, it doesn't always resonate because it's the best, highest choice for you as a sovereign, but because it's so familiar to you. In many cases, this is like that. So people resonate because it gives them a feeling of home. So they feel embraced and accepted, but it's like nurtured within a safety house that really isn't safe at all. It's really quite dangerous. If you look at it from a higher perspective, it's dangerous to become entrained in something for so long, for eons of time, without even waking up to the fact that you're a free spirit being, that you can choose any reality you want at any time at your disposal. That's the very nature of a sovereign being. No one tells you, no master tells you have to have these lives and go through these steps and learn these lessons so you can finally progress. This is an illusion again. So because of that, the nature of the hologram, right, we have here another drawing, right? This is the core. This is different circles, right? I've talked about before the different realms. And within those different realms, right, you have different points of reference. And here, this is what the most people, how they perceive. But the people or beings who are galactics, we perceive within galactic wiring. Because we are entrained not within hologram, but the nature of the galaxy, the nature of the pulse of life. And I have a Tantrica Life Force Mastery course that aligns with the Galactic Pulse of Life Mastery, which is also tool and practice that many great seers use in many different parallel realities, or star realms. It's a technique how you enter the realm of the higher mind, and this was shared in that narrative through that course. Was a beautiful additional guidance through the whole tantric life force mastery process of your own body, embodied practice of life force maintenance, which is a self-maintenance process. So here, right, we have these different points of reference, and it's like one would see here, the other one see there, but it's still encased in something finite. This is what we're talking about here today. While the galactic wiring is a spiral consciousness processing, it's not linear. So you don't even perceive reality anymore as just timelines, but you start perceiving time as the only time there is. So basically how it goes is spirit time is no time. It's the quantum realm. You process it through your sovereign form as real time, and you create a kind of like a structure of your experience which processes in that real spirit time brought in real time. So this is no longer the experience where linear time has to be an interception point for you. So these points of reference change because of various spectrums and filters of experiencing, right? So you've been here, you've done that, you've gone this life, that life, parallel here and there. But from the perspective of spirit, there's a deeper essence, and that essence can always be accessed here. At your core. So why do then these observers see it differently, right? Because of these different perceptions. But in multidimensional consciousness cognition, there is beingness or openness for a simultaneous real-time flow of information that's been processed within an unrestricted flow and unlimited in its potentials or delivery. Because even timelines, if we use the word timelines, are still finite. So you have a finite option of probabilities. Basically, we're moving into probabilities, right? It's not even potentials even, it's just probabilities. It's different variables. It's like you can see these as timelines. But in a spiral consciousness, you move into true potentials that are infinite. So that's basically the main difference in seeing through mastery of seership. So sometimes we try so hard to access something, right? But it's not there and it doesn't come, and we create a barrier. And this also talks about putting pressure or expectation that creates an instant barrier. But again, this is because people want to suddenly wake up to these gifts and be all-knowing and have this without going through the process. And because it will create these barriers, they will then try to resolve them instantly. So just as they created a lot of these astral confusion for themselves and the way they filter reality, until reality is still being filtered, it's still not in real time happening to you. You're either accessing points from the past or future, which is just a projection. And that means your life force of spirit cannot be fully embodied in the body ever now. It cannot exist in real time. So you don't have the kind of power that the natural creation of the human can have. So therefore, what we're being sold now is that the human has no power. It's so powerless instead of being powerful. And it can be, but it needs to utilize its life force in real time. Otherwise, it's futile. So in multidimensional consciousness template, we all are already source, right? So all is available to us at all times, at any time, at our free, unlimited disposal. This means that when something, let's say, seemingly unavailable from our limited view or our perspective at that time is usually still in processing, it's in transition or in progress, and comes through us via an integration point or synthesis in perfect divine timing. Right? When we have the water balloon pour, it just pops, and there's an experience of overflowing when it's time. So we always work in this spirit, life force mastery reality. We work with light quotient. We don't work with these finite potential that basically are just probabilities, but we work with the building of the infinite that builds itself. It kind of plants the seeds into this form that we call finite temporarily, and it translates its spiraling infinite consciousness. It's like layer per layer unveiling. The unveiling process has to unfold. It's a part of what is the journey of ascension. Sometimes people call this the walk through the veils of illusion, or it's been called many names. But basically the body matrix, right? The point is that our body has to be aligned with this process for that to even occur. So it has to align during these transition stages. That means actually that a new consciousness framework of receiving and downloading information is being worked on. So those times we might feel kind of spaced out, right? Wired in a weird way, worked on. And we must be patient for it to vibrationally match the level of incoming information, because we don't strive to achieve anything. So anytime you're enforcing information to come, you're basically utilizing an aspect of will that is called control. It's not the will that is naturally flowing through life force. So through greatest surrendering of all control, the greatest gifts of the soul will cause the coming, of our presence through and be developed. And when there is great devotion present and focus on selfless service, everything else will naturally align. Our soul has it all covered, and we don't have to think too hard or worry about our purpose. We only have to tend to what is right in front of us in each moment. And this is what it means, move from this constant, because there's a program to constantly keeps you moving, but it's not the moving in a spiral. It keeps people constantly busy with something, always something next to work on, always like this is the linear processing. And it's something you feel like the sense of things happening in cycles, things being repetitive for you. And this is what we call the patterns. But the basic inception for the pattern is this primordial inception, right? That you have a fixed conditional relationship with this body, which means there is none of this flow of spirit and matter which breathe together in an unconditional relationship. So this is when the body, when it's the new body, and we're going to go deeper into that in the new body template course, is a breathable experience where it's unconditional and it's flowing. It's not like you are trapped in a physical body. So this is what was the biggest inception ever told. And with this devotion to this process of unveiling, not just, oh, I'm here to serve others, but serve others through your own unveiling process and taking that as a part of this, you will know that you're stepping into something much greater. I also want to talk about the difference between remote viewing and marks of seership, because people nowadays use these terms like, psychics access information this way, remote viewers are looking at information. But again, they're looking at these variables that are still playing out within the hologram, because even when you go out of the body, there's people who have either spontaneous or induced, self-induced experiences when they go out of the body. But even when they go out of the body, they're still contained within the hologram. So that's a difference of people who say, I've been out and I've seen these realms and layers. Yes, they have seen the layers, they've seen the structure, right? Lower astral, middle astral, this astral, that, higher level, these. They've seen that. They've maybe had a walkthrough. But when they come back into the physical, all they can do is report about it. But still, they've never seen this. This is what the guidance in the dream was. It's like, have you ever seen the end of the wall? And I think the song, Pink Floyd, was actually channeled. So the difference between the remote viewing and marks of seership is that it's probably the most important part of knowing here. Remote viewing still operates on a linear cognitive perception, right? So you're viewing different timelines and events presented, like probabilities, on them as these probabilities, right? It is great for accessing potentialities within those probabilities, but only true seership, which is based on a spiral multidimensional consciousness and cellular cognition as a result of that processing, goes actually beyond this, and it operates within actual template building, not potentialities only. So you're actually building the template of the sovereign domain. So as humans, we're sort of a mix or hybrid now of both the linear and abstract, the quantum level, which is the essence level, and the current energetic framework for embodiment. And therefore, the marks of seership is the connecting link here that operates via the accessing of prime source potential directly without any interfaces, right? So interfaces would be your whole body, right? Our whole body, the way it was designed and tempered with, is considered to be an interface. And has a certain visual, it has limited 5 senses, which you can only use until this degree and that amount. And like humans have so many interfaces, but the primarily one is our body, right? So how we were programmed to perceive through this lower mind, there was basically a creation within the hologram. So this is why I think it was Einstein that said the consciousness that created this cannot solve it. And this is why the only solution is moving to the heart, which is the functioning of the spiral, right? Is the spiraling consciousness that comes through the cosmic nature of the heart, and therefore in our physical heart as well, that intercepts that. So we have so much of these interfaces built in our body framework. So it's essential that those inception points are located in the body, recognized as such, and dissolved. And we're going to go into the new body course in how to do that, how to even see the points in your body where the body template will start to embed itself. So therefore, we are actually cracking the codes of the false matrix, the design, and dissolving the limiting points of inception, which directly link in with the timelines, right? And we are writing a new creatrix, building blocks of source consciousness through the infusion of light, love, and truth. So this is the template. This is the triad, right? The unity. We literally have to allow our higher soul consciousness to locate these points in the body. This means locating points that exist in what we call the trap sense of time. So sometimes we do have to travel to access these points that we maybe say are fragments, right? We locate them in the body because everything that exists energetically can be located in our body. That's the main principle of life, how it's structured. So when the new body comes in, it's going to come in through these points. And these points of coming into where the body embeds itself are also where points of inception have been, because where you have portals, you have also a cover up of that portal. So it's the same thing with our bodies. That's where we have to locate these points, and that's why the new body consciousness knowing is so important. So we have to locate them in the body, which we can only do in pure surrender and not analyzing the inherent process we're in. This has to be accessed without judgment and fear. So therefore, we have the importance of body work, life force mastery for this process, loosening up tensions in the body, letting go, dancing, practicing joy, yoga, laughter, gratitude. All these practices assist the unveiling of these blockages. So now the last point here that I have here is called reading the energy and energy patterns, because again, like I said, you have to become sovereign yourself in order for you to read that outside of you. We need discernment to recognize falsehood, revelations, right? Natural empathy versus galactic empathy, because a lot of empaths are still linking into this, the inbuilt programs, and they're using their empathy in a more negative connotation because they're still feeding the hologram through being, let's say, a low vibrational empath that does not use its sense of galactic knowing or the spiraling wiring to access empathy at a much higher level, which means only through that level a bigger picture will be presented to you, to us. So this is entering a state of pure knowingness that is cellular. Why cellular? Like I said, each day the cells send information forth, and each time you recreate, you wake up, you recreate your body anew. That's the real-time knowing. So it has to be felt and experienced in the body, not outside of it. So people who walk out of their body, like I said, they still wake up, but what are they waking up to? You know, are you still in a hologram? Like people who have experience with mind-altering substances, they wake up to something, and people who are not really evolved beings yet, they go like, wow, look at this. It's almost like you have being, you know, first time you see fireworks and you're like, oh, you're totally mesmerized by it. So you can see the whole meaning and vibration of it because you're just mesmerized by it. So a lot of the hologram is written in that way to kind of, it's like we're captivated by it. We're like entranced with it. And because of this, we can feel and experience the true vibrational essence that emanates from it. So a lot of these induced experiences have lucid experiences, but again, lucid means like you're entering the realm beyond physical eyesight or vision. You can go into third eye, but still you have to, if you go into the true mastering of seership, you're going to work with realms beyond just opening your third eye to astral projection, astral realms, and out-of-body travel. You're going to have to find loopholes within the hologram, to find points of inception, to apply them in your own body and process, to find these loopholes in your own body because your body exists within the hologram. Therefore, the way out is in, and that means through your body. That's the whole matrix happening here, guys, in just this one video course that's so important. And this is only true now for master souls. You're the ones who's going to be doing this application first, and you're going to be, you know, giving this gift of life to others who come after you. So because it exists within you, not outside of you, therefore it cannot be influenced by any other means or agenda. It will be liberating our vital life force energy. That means we will no longer be feeding it to the matrix or to whatever processes that this hologram demands of us. We'll be reading the language of the creatrix instead of the imprinted language. Someone who wrote the program says, this is the narrative, you just follow that program, right? You haven't even written that program yourself, and yet you're following, right? So a sovereign being writes its own programs through language of source, which is a light language. First expression of the language, as you know, is sound. And then it becomes patterns of light and becomes certain geometry and so on and so forth. So for us, we will be then emanating that pure energy of benevolence without any filters or projections. But let's face it, most of us, we have that. It's not that easy though, right? So this wall, right? It has certain, like I say, points of inception, like here and there, right? So once we will start to wake ourselves and we'll be locating these points, it's not going to be that easy to access out, because again, there is no easy way like out. Every time we pinpoint something, it will be a higher calling and invocation back within. This is what most people want to resist. This is where the resistance kicks in the most, basically, because you're like, oh, I located this, I want out now, I want to be free, you know. And if you're a newbie, you haven't had a lot of training, you're gonna fail. Have you ever seen a movie Divergent, and I think sequels coming after, you know, when they go into that train simulation, right, simulation experience, and only beings who are divergent, they can actually crack what's offered to them. They can actually use their own power of kind of like going around it. They're going around the system. So basically it doesn't work on them. And that's what they're so dangerous to society. And that's what they call them divergent and all, you know, it's kind of like trying to eliminate them, right? They call them like, oh, you don't belong in any of these castes, so you're divergent, go away. But the word divergent means that the way they process information goes beyond this linear. So because of that, they're like a spiral. They can shapeshift in any way and form. They're fluid. So in my dream, I had recently this dream when they were showing me about the matrix portals and the keepers of these portals. As they're keepers of the light, they're also keepers or controllers of the dark. So I was shown like the being who wants to exit out, and there's someone who at that portal, they kind of like nudge them back in that direction. And it's like, we don't always see that. They show me an example, but we have to go a little further then. We're going to do that in the second part. But they've shown me like an example with a movie, and the movie is called The Adjustment Bureau. I don't think you've ever seen it. The movie Adjustment Bureau, I have to locate it here. It's Matt Damon and Emily Blunt, I think, and they're the couple that falls in love, right, with the Matrix, like all of us are. And basically, they want to be together, but these guys in black suits and black hats, they're always trying to push them in another direction. They're always like, no, go here, no, go there, and they're working so hard on the map and the system, which needs to go that way, which is pre-programmed, that they're actually an infiltration, so they become dangerous, right? So they're kind of like, they have to work so hard with them. And this movie was just like, from the first time I saw it, I was like mesmerized by it, because there's so much truth hidden in that movie. At the end, they do find the point of love, and they do write their own programs, and they even kind of like congratulate them. It's like, you've actually mastered this, right? It's not like it's a fated thing, but they have these, it's literally a representation of timelines, right? You go here, no, you kind of go another timeline, oh, we have to re-access it here and there. So in the dream, I was seeing that it's not that easy. If you only want out, you're not going to get the whole picture. So there will be these beings like keepers of the portals that will kind of gently nudge you back. So it's like, you want out, you want, oh, I want this. They will kind of show you something. It will be like a charade or a facade, and something that will, it's like in that moment, it will be like, let's see, you see something and it kind of shapes your focus. It shifts your focus back from where you're not supposed to be. So this is how they operate. It's like you have a portal and you have a hole. It's like something like a cover up against it, and they're there, and if they exist, they have their job, right? So literally they were showing me this in the dreams. So anyway, before we get to the second part, because this is long, I want to divide it into 2 parts so you can watch, you know, easily. Don't take it too much at once. Yes, we would be at this point, right, when we really know our own sovereignty, we can read any energy outside through our own sovereignty. So we'd be emitting energy only by being, which is the highest state of receptivity that meets embodiment. And we radiate pure knowing, not by just saying and claiming that we're know how to do this and we are these beings, whatnot, but by internally owning that frequency signature and alignment of our sovereign domain. So as you know, there's beings who say, I'm a star seed, I'm a light worker, I'm this and that, but if they're not a sovereign star seed, they're not a sovereign volunteering aspect, they still have work to do, and we do have until we get to that point. And even when you get to that point, you still have work to do, because then you have to serve with your knowledge and your awareness, and it's your process. So basically, a volunteering soul type is a being that is a free source being that exists beyond these concepts of duality. They've not been entrained in this locked-in system, and they use their gift of freedom to help liberate from within. Okay, so they don't like hover above and say, oh, poor you guys, you'll find your way out eventually. They're agents of change, and that's why in my own channeling, we always call ourselves mission agents. So in the second part, we're going to go deeper into the wall and how to break through or move beyond. I hope you enjoyed the course so far. I really hope I made it understandable to a degree. It's the best I can do to make it as simplified. Again, it's a prerequisite for the new body course, because you can't build a platform template of the new before you fully liberate yourself with this. So they're showing me this again as a part of my own process, as a culmination in this knowledge and awareness of inception, and then moving beyond it and just putting it like it's like now there's the backpack of all of this. It's a gift if it's offering to all, and then you move on. So if you would like to, if you want to join me for part 2, we're going to go deeper and talk more about also things like implants, and again, more deeply in how to liberate ourselves and false constructs versus our true sovereign nature. And I'll see you in part 2. So hello there everyone, and welcome to the second part of the free course on mastering the marks of seership and our multidimensional cellular recognition and cognition, of course. So we will begin going deep into bending our minds, right? Because this is what needs to be done at this point. So if you don't have enough mind bending from part 2, make a little, intermezzo and step into part 2. The first thing I want to talk about here today is the implants, right? Because a lot of people mention them, and implants are not necessarily physical constructs like that which would hold specific density, or physical substance. Huge or major portion of implants that also exist within this hologram-based duality are energetic in nature, and they do align with specific points of inception, of course, right? So I want to talk about removing these implants in terms of certain energetic patterns that were being transferred into the living nature of our body, as being and functioning as an organism, right? Because this is such a deep topic. So there was one example recently when someone explained to me the kind of experience they had, and in their experience they actually received a certain energy infiltration through a certain Reiki session they entered into with a certain healer, right? So after a consultation with me as well, the person then was also doing work with another psychic healer, right? And after that, they've been writing to me again. And in that example, they simply said to me that in what was shared with them was that they received some sort of an implant, right, as a point of interception. And there was a reptilian origin or something like that, I don't know. And now this kind of causes them to exist within a separation, and they can't access their own soul framework. The first thing I was actually shown when I read those words was like, I was really disappointed with the way these supposed healers in a channel session transmit information to people who obviously still don't have the understanding to, witness this process organically. So they get scared when they hear things like that. And basically, like I said, you can't create healing. You can create a platform for the new with an existing framework of fear. So a lot of times when things like that are being shared with individuals in this way, it's And in its own sense of the delivery, it's very programmed, because sometimes I'm disappointed in the way that people work, or people tell other people they read their Akashic fields or whatever records, and that doesn't make us truly sovereign. And whenever someone does that, I'm not really infatuated with that. I'm really not, and aligned with that reality. So for us ourselves to understand the process of removing these implants, first and foremost, the implant only exists because there is a carrier frequency that responds to this belief, right? So a lot of people don't understand that in a way they have made an agreement. So they've allowed this to infiltrate into their space because of what they are either trying to learn about themselves, something they want to master. And it's really not such a fated thing. So when you look at these implants from a perspective of duality and separation, the first thought would be like, oh, just get that out of me, right? I can't even access my soul because of that. In truth, it doesn't mean you can't access your soul, but the way you receive is somehow filtrated through that implant. So there is soul essence always flowing through, but it comes in a way that is structured and it's being guided through this implant, that it's only, it's only able to sustain itself because there's something within your field still holding that frequency. So basically within this program hologram, you have built this reality that this is possible, and because you believe it's possible, it's kind of like a firm grip through which it can, it roots itself into experience. So for us, when we raise our consciousness, these implants truly are organically being dissolved. And in the new body course, we're going to actually explore how this occurs through our own sovereign body liberation points, when you're liberating your points, which happens through the entire body creatrix, so that the new body can eventually enter. It's like being embedded, so that we have full access to our crystalline or rainbow body form, and always in our disposal, not like shifting back and forth and having certain filtered experience of our soul. And because when our awareness is rising, it's like these false patterns just naturally are being uprooted, right? And because of that, they're no longer being able to be sustained. They will organically start to dissolve. And whenever people tell others like, oh, you have this and these negative or negative polarity oriented beings have somehow infiltrated with your body and your system, and people get scared because it's a natural tendency to feel fear with such things, because you feel something is being done to you, and the awareness of that naturally can work or cooperate with a greater creatrix. Sorry, I'm tongue-tied, I do so much work. And because of that, it means it won't allow, the body to process that, because you will have a filtered belief that this is not possible because something is done to you. So the first approach to these implants is to claim back your sovereignty and knowing that nothing can ever be done to you, which means you have to do the deep inner work to see where you yourself have missed certain points, right? So you have loopholes. So it's like, system can have loopholes, right? And when we find those loopholes, we're like seeking, ooh, there's like exit points out of this matrix. So if we're not doing the work within our own sovereignty properly, we also will create kind of like holes in what sometimes people call this holes in the auric system. It's not like little holes, but it's more like, because your auric system or entire energy makeup does not function within unity, there will definitely eventually come a place where you will perceive it as a tear, right? It's like a tear, a tiny hole. And this process is so deep, it's so complex, and I still have not witnessed, people in a way approaching this with love. Instead, everyone kind of approaches this topic with so much fear. There's like this, I don't know, it's an enigmatic approach to this. It's almost like, ooh, implants, right? It's been seen as a very negative process, instead of us going deep in our psyche and saying, where have we actually allowed, because we hold these beliefs? And eventually when a person does inner work, they will find out. So when I had a few exchanges with that person, they were immediately shown like, oh yes, I actually went to church maybe once, 2 times, 3 times, and they were telling me something about the Holy Spirit. And I think that's when this started occurring, even prior to the Reiki session. So eventually we'll come to the root. And for you to come to the root, it's truly the only realization you can have to come to the point of uprooting, these implants. So it's an organic process. The moment when there's no longer a ceiling, right, something that holds that being sealed in that position, it will dissolve. So it's really an organic process, and we don't need people telling other people what they have in their aura. So sometimes it scares them, because if you're a true healer, you have to really be watchful of what you say to people. Because if you use such things based on separation without a higher understanding, if you only give the person, let's say, oh, you have this implant, you only give them the information without the higher understanding, without the wisdom of what that actually caused this to occur, the person will remain stuck within this dualistic perspective. They will feel like a victim to this process, and truly they're not. Something within their body, something within their energy makeup participated in this process. And a lot of times they wanted to master their liberation, or many times it goes back to several lifetimes, right, within this hologram, when they've experienced this. And in this lifetime, if a soul will choose to really liberate themselves, free themselves of this, maybe they will choose a more challenging experience, and it will feel for them like they can't break free. But because they're already at the level of awareness that something is being intercepted, because you have to have a certain awareness to even be able to grasp the notion of reality, that something is off in the first place. Because like I've explained before, people who do recreational drugs or mind-altering substances, they wake up to this astral reality, they get infatuated by all this bedazzled, right, razzle-dazzle, and they get so infatuated. They're being sold that reality for, wow, it's fantastic, must be of source creation, right? Well, everything of source can be recreated, and it's like we have organic intelligence and we have artificial intelligence. Like with our computers, everything that's real can also be put in the program. It can be programmed, because even artificial reality is stimulated by it mimics the organic reality. Like I said before, even falsehood, the source of it is truth. So then it recreates that through certain patterns of its own descriptive language. Basically how all programs come into being. So basically you will have to get really in tune with your body. You'll have to do a lot of body scanning, a lot of body work. This is not the work you can only do with the mind. It's like with the mind or a certain invocation, people do these spells, right, to get that out of the system. It is not enough, because you need a clear cognition of many multi-levels to understand even what that's happening. And probably for people, if they really want to master this, right, they will have to access several of these timelines where in reality they still hold these energy patterns. So there's aspects or fragments of the soul that hold this locked, like they hold this in motion, so it continues to unfold. So they have a feeling like, I can't get through it, I can't break through, because they're literally accessing these realms, how to say it, these perspectives. We've talked before about these perspectives. They're accessing them simultaneously. But for you to move into real cognition of that is to move into real time. And in real time, even though there's a perception of a part of you being hijacked, manipulated, controlled, implanted, whatever, governed by a force outside of you, the bigger reality of the spiral will tell you that even though there's a finite expression of you that seems to be now a temporary expression, there's a bigger overriding quality of life essence that always works behind the scene, that's always there. You have to find the back door to that process, and that process is doing also the shadow work of mastering and going through these levels. Yes, okay. This is about the imprints, and I want to talk about the collapse of this false reality, right? So the mass collapse of reality now is that the infinite beings find themselves awake within the human construct and wonder what just happened, right? So this can take place and is taking place at such a mass level now. That's why this course is offered freely in this way, because it's so important. So in many instances, to be awake is perceived as being only partially awake. So this is the first waking up, and we can mistaken it for the final waking up, but the first waking up truly is the fact that you are asleep. So first, the Spirit says you have to wake up to the fact that you are asleep, and working through the levels of that haziness or sleepiness through the veils of illusion, right? So I will also add things here that I also am talking about, that were also discussed in the Wingmakers interview, this project, about the collapse of the wall. This is how I call it, literally. So in this interview, there's been given the three inceptions, right, of this bottled up reality. These three main pathways, right? Of how reality is already programmed. So you ascribe either 1, 2, or 3, right? These programs. The first is the reincarnation and karma. The second one is the obedience, be good and obedient, right? And eventually join the ranks of hierarchy and move up the ladder of the heaven, whatever. And the third one is that eventually you ascend through the heavenly ranks, sorry, to the ladder and become a teacher within the hierarchy, right? And also there's one additional one, which is we are simply human of flesh and blood and have no soul. And this gets very close to what's also mentioned as nihilism. You've probably heard of that term, which basically is a belief in nothing at all. This is a rejection of all religious and also moral principles, which is very dangerous, because in this way, the human psyche, the way human perceives reality, starts to behave in a destructive pattern, like destructive, abusive towards nature, towards other forms of life, other human beings. Because here in this definition, life is simply meaningless. And also in the interview, they discussed the very importance of this and the impact in our youth through many different programs in television, video games. You know, our youth is being so exposed, and it's being drugged, it's being alcoholized, it's being all of that, okay? So these programs, these paths, right, exist within the hologram of deception and do not lead past the wall, right? Remember the term. Have you ever seen the end of the wall? Don't make the wall, actually, they don't make the wall less stable. So in my dream guidance, the words were, have you seen the end of the wall? And I've mentioned the song of Pink Floyd called The Wall. So here again, I come to the expression of the fishbowl, which is in the closed and confined space. You might feel safe in your water, in your watery bubble, but you're still in a bubble, right? So Earth being quarantined has been mentioned many times, and this does relate to this, that this quarantine again is artificial in many ways, that we kind of connect to this idea of that. The reason why we couldn't discover life elsewhere partially lies in this. So we kind of search for life elsewhere, that we can, because we're contained within this hologram. So nothing is ever shown to us as there's meaning in life elsewhere. So there's a sense of this, the wall kind of prevents us to have this experience. So to be a free infinite being is the fifth way. This is the fifth door, right? And it relates also in a way to fifth dimension or fifth density reality expression within our body form. And this is why they don't reveal the great deception in many of the esoteric teachings and whatever, right? Esoteric teachings, as it was explained also in the interview, are full of cosmic knowledge in great detail. But why at the same time, right, and in regards to actually who wrote them, why don't they talk about this program of deception? And why, when you go deeper into the words and the meanings behind these words, when you feel the energy, they still hold duality and judgment within that keeps us separate. There's always something that's like, you know, even when these scriptures talk about the ancient battles of light versus dark and all of that, just fighting the dark, like light entities then battle dark entities and all of that. And again, this does not occur in this spiraling reality. This only occurs within the confined space of this hologram, because it's a program. And that's why you have witnessed, or we have witnessed, war on this planet for eons of time. There was never a time without a war actually on this planet, because the program in itself calls it out. So why do we also, you know, when we go to these teachings and we want them to give us the ultimate truth, why do we actually want someone to give us the ultimate truth? And this is what we addressed in part 1 specifically. Where does this actually lead us, right? Decoding the matrix is possible through cracking the codes and breaking the wall. And we, in a way, when we become these mission agents, we're like life essence hackers. That's what they were showing me. So I have been talking about in part 1 about psychics. So what are they actually seeing? What are they waking up to? What energies are they reading? In many cases, like I explained before here, right, with these different perceptions, they're simply reading the programs because the programs have already been written. So they are psychic, right? They do see, they might be visionary, but like I said, they're just reading the program that's been pre-chosen for you. This is not necessarily a program that aligns with your sovereignty, with your natural ability to choose as a master being, a being who operates within your sovereign domain, a master of the self. So it's like reading these predictable patterns, and psychics can tune into it and read them quite easily. And this is not the same as reading the language of light, which is the realms of illumination and illumined truth. So even each psychic, because I was shown that many of these beings were used in times past, so many of these agendas employed people like this because they had these extra abilities. Some of them are even, what Spirit is showing me, beings who we say they're starseed, but they have somehow sold out in a way that they're serving the hologram without even knowing it. A lot of them don't know. They think they're doing good. They're not like evil beings per se at all. But the problem is they think they're doing good when actually they've lost knowledge to witness reality at this higher lumen level. And to read the patterns of illumination, you have to see first that you're actually still asleep within a hologram and you're basically just serving it. And that's quite a challenging truth for many to accept. And even, you know, people, let's say, who've been watching my videos for years, and I do a video like this, which goes so deep. I've been mentioning it like pieces per pieces, right? Slowly, gradually. But this is like the whole summoning, like the call, the great call to see beyond. And to be honest, I haven't witnessed a lot of real illumined material outside. I don't know all material relating to this, the New Age application, true laws of ascension. I've seen, mostly if I read something, I'll see something. I see elements of truth, but then again covered with a little of this and that and a lot of haziness. So in my way, because I can read through my own sovereignty, I'll always get the best from that. I will know how to take the seed and then break through that which is unreal, which is an illusion. But a lot of people don't know, so they keep going around in circles. They want a solution for something, but it's like the problem is that we're seeking solutions still in this confined space and we can't break through. So like I said before, a lot of these beings who were, in a way, beings, more advanced beings, that's what they had, these gifts. But since they become a part of the hologram themselves, they're only able to utilize or use their gifts at the level still confined within the hologram. They're not accessing higher spirit reality, which is an unconfined, infinite reality that everyone there is a sovereign being. So therefore, if someone comes to you for reading, what should I do? What's my mission? When will I meet my partner? All these answers, right? It's like either you read them within this predictability, or you tell them they're their own sovereign and that they're the ones who can create anything through life force, which is the finest substance of spirit, basically, is the finest essence. So when you go so deep, you will start discovering, why do things happen to us in circles repeatedly? Again, it's another program. And this hologram program holds a very minimum level of evolution possible. There's still evolution. That's why souls have been developing. But if you notice, we take a time cycle such as we've talked about, right? The great 26,000 years from the Mayan predictions and calendars. And there hasn't been a lot of progress in that time capsule, right? So when you look at the bigger picture behind this, why is this so? It's because it's been a program that's just been on repeat. Like I said, same players, different scenarios, different historic eras or whatever. But again, a lot of it still holds a program. And they're now in mass for, like solutions that are now being like covered up as solutions. A lot of them I see are new agey hocus pocus explanations, which are like faulty interpretations of reality that truly comes through spirit, and it's supposed to be unbiased, unfiltered. And yet when we give it such a definition, we filter it. And one of such examples that Spirit really always wants me to talk about, and I have talked about in so many of my videos, is this twin flame idea, which was then again kidnapped or taken. It was interjected and it became another inception point or just another program, which was a false interpretation of the divine union and a shift into truly perceiving the twin soul as the very nature of your life essence, which is masculine, feminine energies in divine balance, instead of seeking for a person that is that mirrored polarity, and without them you're not whole. And it caused a lot of people to become even obsessed with this idea that they have to find someone and that they have to ascend with them, and without them they cannot do this. And shifting to you being the mission agent will cause you to shift to see that in terms of that being your mission partner. And I really want to read you. I've recently did another channeled drawing, especially with this idea of the twin flame, which was the real twin flame is the sacred flame within. And the guidance that came through, and I want to read it now since we're mentioning this, is that this shows the sacredness of the twin soul flame, which burns within the illumined one. So each and every one of us has this illumined core. Unfortunately, the words twin flame have been so deeply misunderstood because they were a major point of inception for all duality programs. This was to make one search outside of themselves for fulfillment and perfection. In truth, the sacred flame of the twin soul is an inner initiation of spirit where we master the laws of polarity and become an illumined being. This is you going beyond the battle of evil, dark versus light. And this is what illumined divine union means, and its mission is that of cosmic ascension. When one becomes the living attainment and embodiment of the sacred flame, they also become the so-called anointed one. This was, I think, referenced to in many times in many ancient texts. This means that their living embodiment becomes that of the holy blood, which in simple terms means the embodiment of the crystalline light that flows through the human blood. The blood, as you know, it contains little tiny crystals, so it contains light crystals inside. This embodiment marks the living sustenance of Christed consciousness in human form and holds the physical body as the sacred vessel for spirit. The one then becomes the living light that shines in the dark and permeates through everything with the holy essence of divine mana, the living life force of spirit. And when you actually are able to do that work within you, you actually are more in terms of being prone to sacred partnership, which will reflect that divine union, that illumination within you. So this inception program of the twin flame was to cause masses of people to, it's almost like you leave your inner work in search of going at it for another person. And even though these people talk about them doing the inner work to be with that person or to prepare with them, it's still conditional because they're actually validating their own experience through that other person, that other being, instead of really knowing what that is. So it's almost like another bubble of false reality that keeps people entrained in this not becoming their own sovereign. And it's very sad, but it's very real at the same time. So, as you know, the huge underlying factor in all of this is fear, because even when we hear things like that, like what I'm now talking about in the video, when I talk about it with compassion, with higher perspective, this doesn't cause fear. Like I gave you the example before, when someone gives you only the facts, the information, without the high understanding, if you're not there yet, it's going to create more blockages for you, more distraction, because you will feel powerless in a way. So if you truly want to assist other people, give them the whole truth. Don't just give them facts and whatever, or rather just be silent and leave them alone, because you're not doing any good. And a lot of these people, they're not doing good. They think they are because they're programmed to believe so. And a lot of people who praise themselves to be like the best healers or whatever, they have years of practice, whatever. This does not say anything about where we stand in this entire creation. The only truth we're supposed to align ourselves and seek truly is that spiraling source reality of spirit. And being aligned with that, everything is there for us. All the abundance, all the healing, everything comes naturally. We're in line with the flow of the great life force of spirit. So fear truly is not just what's defined as false evidence appearing real, but also false existence appearing real. And this is so in this case, right, of the hologram. So fear is a natural response to knowing that something is off. So we've been told fear is bad, eliminate the fear factor. When in truth, when you feel a sense of fear, let's say someone tells you something about you, and first it feels like, ooh, do I really have this implant, or is this taking place? Or, someone tells you once was kidnapped by aliens, whatever. Just using a silly example here. But you might feel fear, and this becomes resistance, but not necessarily you're fearing that experience. But there's something within you that's telling you something is off. So we have to discern between fear, which is little fear, and that which simply tells us something is off. Again, we have to do the inner work. No one will tell you what is what. That's why I'm telling you, it's an arduous, challenging process, and most are not ready for this and not aware of it even, that it exists, and that they are souls seeking that primary source experience within them. You know, the first root experience of their being, their seed of life is how the Elohim call it. So they might feel something is off, but not necessarily they will be willing to go too deep into it. And a lot of people say that. So as sovereign beings, only we can do that and exit out of the game. No one can do it for us. There is no savior. Even we're not saving ourselves. We are simply telling ourselves the truth. No one else can do that, or give us or tell us the truth, give us what we want to believe in, what will happen for us. I've mentioned once the example of an empty classroom when you talk, truth to people, when we simply share, be or emanate the truth. And a whole stadium of people, full of people who are there because they're being offered something they want to hear. So when you tell people what they believe they want to hear and what you believe they want to hear, it's difficult, but that's where the majority of the populace still is, because they're still functioning with this deeply entrained program that's been running for eons. So, so psychics, right, who are also not fully awake yet within the hologram, you have to be watchful. And usually people might have agreements that, let's say something is falsely presented to you, and then people want to blame that person or psychic or someone that's been telling them something wrong. Basically, they were a trigger for them to start waking up. So you have to start turning the reflection of source, the first program running, which is that mirroring program, back to you. Because someone that tells you something that's a false statement, and it's just a piece of information that maybe in the whole bigger game of life it's truly not important, and they're only maybe partially there and awake in the way they see things. They're not mastering seership yet, and then they're still merely interpreting the programs to people. You have these online hotlines of psychics now everywhere, even the commercials, they're everywhere. It's like they're seeking these gullible people who would simply just be told something they want to hear. And that's, again, another sad portion of the reality, where people have forgotten what beautiful, bright beings they are, beings of being able of great mastery and creatorship, but somehow, somewhere, they have forgotten this truth. I've given you a movie before, The Adjustment Bureau, and now they want me to mention some other movies that have this theme playing on, right, with the Inception. One is The Groundhog Day. Do you know that movie? Every day he wakes up and it's the same reality. So in that reality, he's making very, very tiny adjustments, right? You also have many movies about time traveling. These movies will always tell you, you go back, you can adjust a few things, but you can't really enter, right, in full capacity. So you're making tiny adjustments so they wouldn't interfere too much with the whole reality. Again, we're being sold truth this way. Don't make big changes. You're not allowed, right? You're not allowed. So again, this is so misconstrued. This is so false. It couldn't be farther from the truth. Then we have the movie Inception. There's different dream realities and collective dreaming process they go into, and how layers then are being, actually, there's architects of reality. They show you a little bit of truth there, that you actually can design these, and there's certain people who are architects of those reality. Then there's people who walk in these realms. I made a video once called The Dream Walkers. Please watch that. And especially if you're having dreams that you're somehow revealing these things and you're cracking the code at night while you sleep, yes, this is true, this has happened. Another movie, Jupiter Ascending, it's very famous, you know that. There's a lot of cracking there as well. And also The Truman Show, the movie when he's actually living in a bubble in this false reality. It's very interesting. And again, this leads us back to the primary question. How do we know the origin of something, sovereignty of source? Only by becoming fully sovereign ourselves. Sovereign means that this is the individual process. This is the integral collective process as well. So the sovereign is the individual process, and the integral, right, making it a sovereign integral, is the collective process, which means I am and we are. It's unity. And for us as human beings, we're so deeply, programmed into this dualistic processing of information, of being, just simply breathing it all in like this. For eons of time, it might be challenging, but at the same time, there's so much assistance here available. There's these cosmic rays that are being sent for as the primordial essences from the galactic core that continues to stimulate our DNA and rewire the way we operate, and it's kind of like uplift our cellular cognition in the body, right? So again, like I shared before, we need to go back to the origin of the inception point, the primary inception point. So this is about the interconnectedness of spirit and body. The main inception was that in order to experience physicality, you have to be in the body in terms of to fully incarnated and fully trapped, so that you actually forget that you're a spiraling being. And this is how they trapped, like it was shared in the interview, those ancient beings called the ancient Atlanteans, and kind of put them in these ape human bodies. So this was a construct. And they felt trapped in these constant reincarnation cycles, conditioned to be in certain time frames, that their time can be, like people have these deja vus exactly because of that. Time going in cycles, time is being cyclical, predicted, programmed. This is all a part of the same thing. The truth is that of a free, unconditional life that's seated. It's a seated experience, which means there's a free flow and interchange of spirit and matter. So it's spirit animating the body through the life force essence. The body receives it, and there's this flow. It's like a pulse of life. It's in-breath and out-breath. In the traditional reincarnation experience, there's very minimum room left for this breathable process. People always feel confined. And then there's a belief that we actually ascend by dissolving these dense human bodies and just becoming beings of bubbles of love and light. Again, if there's any belief within you that you need to escape this body, you haven't fully understood the principle. The only way out is in. So it's through the body that we ascend. And that's why I don't see a lot of people emphasizing the meaning of the physical ascension. Out of very few rare sources, there's one source that I do resonate with. A lot of the material that comes from them is in alignment with what I also receive. And it's called Larkma. It's Lark M, and then two double A's again. And it's these beautiful beings who are a vessel for Pleiadian consciousness, and they're sharing these messages. And so you can find their webpage. They really resonate with me as one of those rare few sources. I'm not saying they're the only one, but I'm fully busy with doing my own thing, so I'm not really out there to go for the next scavenger hunt for the next best thing. But this is something I really like, and I can recommend. It's good stuff. So, yes, again, we have to remember the primary reason, right, behind this, which was that this whole process, even the inception, was not forced from a higher vantage point, from a bigger perspective. It was orchestrated. It was chosen because the souls chose to participate. They wanted to experience this. They wanted to experience how it is to be confined and then wake up again, and then when you wake up within the matrix, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm a total soul badass. And this is when you remember that, because you are like Source. Source can write any code, right? And then remembers it's the one that's been writing the program. So what the Spirit has been telling me is like, the faulty notion with people who want to go out of this whole system. They want to go out, and there's resistance. They're building more resistance, right? Because they're trying to escape it. They're actually just creating a firmer grip to stay in, right? So the reason behind this is that there's a lack of understanding that this was a pre-agreement that would eventually lead to greater understanding of reality and how Source writes reality. So people who've been trying to crack the matrix, or like even eliminate it completely, but they weren't the ones writing it anyway. They weren't the ones writing the hologram. So basically our job here as mission agents is to master ourselves in the matrix, or to master ourselves in time. Because someone recently said that someone told them that they need to, through this cyclical experience of time, they need to master time. And let me tell you something like that. Most souls are not even sovereign yet, and they want to master time and universal laws or whatever. let's go back to the start, okay? Let's be realistic here. We are here and we only can do that we master ourselves. So you want to get all the laws and understand this and that, but in truth, we are here to master ourselves in these bodies, in matrix, in time. So we have, as it was shared before, we have a no time, which is the spirit essence level. We have the real time, which is infused with the embodied life essence, not lost in past, future projections. It is here, right now. All your life force that you're claiming belongs to you, and this is when you're truly a sovereign. So this is when the quantum levels can precipitate in your body and unify with you, and this is when you can be an embodiment of spirit and form in this unconditional relationship, not this trapped in condition, victim, forgetting I'm source. What the heck, right? So time as a construct was programmed. There was cyclical, happening in loops, timelines, points of inception. And now it's time to exit this, right? This time is a construct. We talk about lords of time, lords of karma. Again, we have to ask ourselves the questions, but who are these beings, right? Who is programming anything? And how can I be, even though whatever they're doing, whatever programs are being written, how can I exist independently, free of what they choose to create? Okay, maybe they can choose to create war, poverty, whatever, famine. But to truly be a sovereign is to ask yourself one crucial question. What do I choose as a master sovereign being? And it doesn't occur here. But your full heart has to feel this. And then you bring that step by step gradually in your human form. And this is what we're doing here in real time, which means we have to be grounded about it. We can expect like overnight, we're like, poof, like I'm puff of air, like transcended the body. But the basic thing is when people are looking for answers, the mind cannot have these answers because the mind is or was a part of the program construct. So therefore, cannot be the one analytically solving it anyway. So the mind versus the brain, I've explained to you before, the brain is the biological hardware. Mind was the software that was built in. So it was the interface. Now we're shifting into the heart, which is directly linked with the cosmic heart essence, which is the spiral, can have those answers gradually, but not in a way that it exists as an independent entity. The mind has to be, completely cut off. The mind is bad. This is where we don't get it. We've chosen this experience. Therefore, we were a part of the program. We were the ones who experiment within it. So the heart, when it merges with this consciousness that was a part of this experiment, brings forth this unconditional acceptance of the process. That's the first requirement at all if you want to progress further. It's complete unconditional understanding. Oh, I've chosen to participate in this, and isn't that grand? This makes me free because when you think you're not free and this was somehow forced or enforced upon you, you will never get, like I said, out. The way is in. And knowing that you let yourself in or you allow this, you were eager to participate. That's what will cause the first step towards your sovereignty, because you'll realize, oh, it was me all along because I'm source. There is no victimhood. There is no other. There is no dark towards me, whatever. It is all me, and game being played by aspects of me that are leading me back home through these preliminary calls, right? These indications of calling me closer to home. And I think that is beautifully written in this short brochure I've read many years ago on the Wingmakers page. Is this PDF file about the root race, about the soul, how it is programmed to eventually remember the essence of home, okay? The primordial sound, the heart of one. So the heart can receive the messages without the interface that's superimposed upon. The heart is the carrier of the divine life, the spiral intelligence. It is tuning into the spiral as a sovereign creation via constant life force expansion, as a carrier from no time experience, which is the spirit realm into the real time, right, a human experience. And these meet in that point of interlocking. So this is where the experience can be felt and measured. We are not here to master time, but rather our experience of ourselves in time, our consciousness, right? And all the constructs that are making it feel like it's contained and finite are being dissolved organically as we're evoking more the consciousness of the heart. The heart is the pulse. The pulse of life always beats. The mind is either programmed or not, but the heart always exists as this essence of life. That's why we call it eternal life. And this is, I think, even Master Jesus was talking about the life eternal in this way. So we create these life hacks to these programs, but we do not change those programs that are not our own creations in the first place. It is not our job. We are here to write our own programs. Like I said, you withdraw yourself from that which you perceive if something's off, right? And then through the source code of the sovereign integral, you start to write your own programs. And this is how you basically withdraw your life force, pull it back within yourself and own it. And when you own it, you can properly utilize it for that which is serving the spiral of life, the spiral of spirit. So we only have to fully, not partially, awake ourselves. That's our main job. In the middle of these programs, all this confusion, right? And then remember our state of a fully sovereign source being, which is a creator being. We create the loopholes for these points of inception, which we eventually have to dissolve and disconnect from fully, right? First, maybe you're not ready, but then you progress towards it and create our new points of conception via source code. That means that we transcribe our spiraling essence, right? The spiral essence, life forms, right, into the physical human bodies. So this is what the translation of life force of spirit moving into the human body. This is this interdependent, unconditional relationship you have. Source meeting the human body and rejoicing in it, instead of, oh, I'm an infinite being hold captive in this physical dense form. This is how the experience was for eons of time, and now it's time to break through and remember. Yeah. So which is now ours, right? And we can begin to create our new body once we have this merging process. So what are we really waking up to? That's the main question. I gave you before examples of magic mushrooms, mind-altering substances, plant remedies, medicines, and people waking up to the unveiling, but only the first layer, which is beyond the physical. Then there's many, many layers that exist as constructs of reality that you have to eventually remember and wake up to. It's like people have dreams that are recurrent. This is a part of something. Maybe you've written the code. I don't know. Maybe you've written the code within the hologram. But either way, when something is like, people say, I've been dreaming this dream again and over, and it's been there for me. It's like you're accessing a part of something that's there, that's programmed. When the new reality, the spiral is like, it's blank. And I think this is what the yogis have been trying to show us with the state of no sleep, the state of dreamless sleep, which is beyond this, the idea of the hologram and all built-in processes. So yeah, the astral as the abstract sounds similar, right? You can wake up to that, but it's your responsibility as a sovereign being to still continue to wake up deeper, to go back, right, to look for the back door of the program. And it's like waking up in the program. So this is how, you know, it's created, and the astral levels are being created. So whoever created the programming, it's their creation, not ours. They played with their creator being potential. They played their game. That's all they did. And others who chose to be in it, they participated in with their creations. But we're all sovereign at our core, and we can always choose. So remember the part of you that has chosen. And this is how you will move beyond this idea that, oh, this was so bad. We had no free will. We were lost. Oh, we're doomed, right? A part of us has chosen this. Example would be something Spirit gave me was two programmers, right? One created the program, the other one was like looking into their program, but they could not fully get their program because, of course, they're not the ones writing it. They were looking at the source code, trying to go through it, like mentally, right? Trying to understand what the first one simply wrote through their own inspiration. So they could learn about it, right? They could enjoy the interface and how it affects their reality. They could see the results of how it affects them. But on the basis, right, of that experience, they could only create their own program. So it's very similar for us. So you take elements here and there, but you choose on your own sovereign level what you participate with, what not. Even now, what's happening, why are certain people awakening, others not? It is not for us to choose who gets to wake up or not, or who gets to wake up partially or this. But I'm sharing this for those of you who are ready, and you will feel the call more and more, right? More strongly, vividly, as time progresses. And time, I mean the evolution of us in time, in what the idea of time is, to put it that way. So yes, when we do things like that, we choose to create. We can only do that when we become a creator, not a created being. But this is when we shift. This is the school, I think. I believe this reality, and why it is so confined or defined is like once you get out of this, you are your own sovereign. It means up to you, baby. And a lot of people who are asking, who are already sovereign, and maybe you have oracle cards and they have these questions like, answers to your questions such as yes, no, maybe, in the near future, blah, blah, unlikely. And you're always getting weird results is maybe because you function beyond that. It's all up to you. It's all up to you. This is what it means. So someone recently have asked me and they said, well, where do we have these programs for, right? Our parents, childhood, society, school, ancestors. I again need to point this out. All these experiences, they are the ones who are also alongside you, who's like next one in line. They were also experiencing this inception. However, these are not the source of the program itself. They're not the template of the inception. They are simply those who have also been experiencing it. And that's what we say forgiveness for parents, family, ancestors. Not because, oh, it's something that gets me out of the karma, but it gets you into a higher understanding that this is just something that's been playing on. And no one was a victim to it, but they were simply in not awareness of it. So why would you not forgive someone that did not know, right, what they're operating within, maybe even for eons of time? And so they transferred their memories via DNA encoding, right, in the record memory. But the source is, right, in this programming itself. So once we decode that, go beyond even what we say, oh, it's the ancestors, is this and that. That's just the first basic layers. And then we get to the idea of source. It's like, if all is source, then who really writes the code? And once you remember your source yourself, you will choose to write your own story. So again, we go back to the end, finishing with the sentence, the only way out is in. And I said that how we will begin, we will end this. So what does this mean? What does this mean for you? Ask yourself very often this question. If something occurs, it's a situation you don't understand. If you're not sure whether to perceive with that awareness, that knowledge, to pursue that type of piece of information, always ask, is the way towards that me going at it externally, or is the way out and knowing is the way in, and how can I do that in this moment? So again, you can't escape the program. There's nothing to escape. It's simply to acknowledge it and say, oh yeah, just another hologram. It's just here on Earth. Okay, just many other before, many universes. Done that. Okay, just I had to be a little humorous here, make this less serious than what it is. But this whole notion of needing to escape something, right, means like we're prisoners, and people say we're prisoners in this. If you believe that, right, the consciousness of the prisoner can never escape. The consciousness of the prisoner who's chosen the prison for the experience and then mastery and evolution is the consciousness of a master at the same time. So the beginning and the end are the same. So this needing to escape it or being victim of it, right, or prisoner of it, it builds a lot of resistance. Example would be someone living in a small, this is what they gave me, small 4-wall room since birth. They've never even seen the real world outside, right? And the question is, what's even the real world, right? So they know nothing else but that. But then eventually they see, someone shows them maybe for the first time in their life, the window to the outside, and they immediately want to escape that. And like, oh, I need to break free. So what they considered the nice home is like all they knew. Now it becomes a prison. You see? So this is something to really consider and go back, always go back to the root. Who is source? What is source? It's all of us, right? And always going back to the beginning. So now I want to go to the last point, which is a few exercises that I would recommend to all of you to assist yourself into getting into this space of really accessing reality through your own source code, through your own knowing. This is my desire for everyone who's ready. And I can only assist by doing this myself, walking myself through the process. They gave me a few examples how to do this in an activation. One example you can do it is you simply meditate and you ask to always meet the knower within you. Who is that knower? And instead of asking, like I said, in this process, we always want to ask other beings for guidance. And see, even if you have a tendency to always go outside of yourself, even if you say, well, but that's a part of my team. Yes, but the team is a larger extension of you. You first have to know the sovereignty that is you, the full expression of you. And people, a lot of times, they use a false concept of sovereignty. You will tell them you have to become your own creator, and they're like, oh, nothing is mine anyway. This is such a strong illusion. It's like, of course, nothing is yours to own, but it's a lot of people who have given up their will from a false perception of not really participating with sovereignty process. That's an excuse. It's like, oh, it's already perfect. I don't need to do anything. You know, I oftentimes see people who want to just share, copy my things. And today, someone asked me if they can share, and I said, I have nothing against sharing, but I simply presented them a more expanded version of reality. And I said, how about you maybe just instead of always sharing, using your own creative ability of your sourceness to use your own words, to share something with your own. And they said, I've lost my mind, nothing is mine. I'm like, oh, new age. I'm sorry. It's like, it's an excuse of people not using their own creative ability, being their sovereign being. And that's how you emanate life force, because you return to your source. I see people online just copy pasting things on Facebook and thinking that's all the reality is. This. Copy paste, copy paste, copy paste. Sorry, again, I'm not really blaming or judging anyone, but it's an invitation to meet the aspect of you that is your inner knower. And the inner knower is not the one that will have all answers for you. Like, you have to ask a question that's sometimes very finite, right? In this world, the physical matter, we often want to know things in a very finite way. When will I do this? When will that happen for me? When will I move? When will I meet the person who's supposed to be my real life partner? All these things. The knower within is not the one who will give you a linear construct kind of guidance. The knower within you is the one that always brings you back to the spiral. And this is the highest aspect you can invoke, meeting the knower within. And you can do that in any meditation space and practice. Simply ask and invoke the knower within you. The next exercise they gave me to receive illumined knowing, illumined guidance, is to stand, to call forth your own knower. That's the first aspect that we require, right? That's the template. Everything emanates from me. In the second exercise, we are standing in the circle of light within the illumined council, right? Within those beings who represent what we call illumined consciousness, consciousness of unity that is structured as a spiral. In that exercise, you can see yourself walking in the middle of the circle and knowing that when you walk, like, you go in the middle of the circle, right? And as you stand in the middle of the circle, sorry, I'm doing doodles here myself, but as you're standing in the middle of the circle, you are absorbing everything from all of these aspects and you're pulling it in. So it's not like you're just standing with them holding hands. Well, simultaneously you are, right? Because there's you who is a part of the unity all together, and there's the you in the middle of the circle, which is the core. And this core, the knowing of all of you who are individual sovereigns standing like around in the circle, maybe holding hands as a group of light. But when you enter the circle, you meet the aspect of you again, which is the knower. This is how you can assist yourself. The knower within a greater soul consciousness or the group consciousness of illumination. And you can see yourself, and then you can always ask questions from that perspective, not like you're receiving from them, but as you are already the representative of the core. So this is kind of like the pool of or reservoir of awareness that you're all simultaneously creating together. And this is one aspect or exercise that you can easily do whenever you have self-questioning or doubts, things coming up, but not just a part of that, but also any kind of meditation, right? Sorry, I'm writing again. I always do that. I'm creating up new courses and doing a course and doing new ones simultaneously. Yeah, I'm a multidimensional being. Can you not do that yourself? We are all, but you know what I mean. I'm very multi-oriented. So one other important thing is that it's very important to commune with this essence now at a regular basis. Because this way we're invoking this feeling that we're always unity. We're a unity of beings. We're a unity of light particles moving in wave motion, that we're never just a single dot or unit. So like I said before, it's important to know the I am, the one, the sovereign that does the work. But the next part is the one that does it as the we are. So what we can do, we can create a very simple exercise here together. I will offer that, and then this is all from me in regards to this. Then if you want to go much to infinite times infinity, just kidding. But if you want to go deeper, you can do that by becoming a part of the new Ascended Body course. And all the links will be down below this one as well. So my beloveds, we're going to do this very simple meditation. You can do it anytime, right? Oof, glasses, you're getting off. Ooh, itchy. So only thing you do is basically take a breath in. Maybe hold it for 3 or a few seconds as you wish. And then you release another few seconds. Now feel how you are emptying yourself of all concepts, ideas, what you need to do, how you're perceiving guidance, what's this, what's that. Just feel for a moment with this breath work, feel like a blank space. And know that it is okay, because as you're being a blank space, you're being a vessel. And the vessel goes right in an alignment with the spiral of life that is infinite, therefore making you feel as infinite as that spiral of life is, for you are a part of that life. And with this next in-breath, pull in the consciousness of your sovereignty, of your individualized source aspect through the invocation I am. In breath, I am. Pause and hold for a while and then breathe it out. The words or the invocation of the group or unity, we are. So there is always this interchange. You being you, you being all. You being the individualized aspect of you, you being the illumined group. And take that in and out for a while and feel this gentle relationship of spirit with your body, like this spirit making love with your body, like the finite lines of your aura and then your physical body, everything that makes up your physical body, becoming less defined, right? They're being more loose. It's like almost you can feel yourself as a great nebula, right? We're looking at nebulas. They have so many colors and such a structure, but it's so refined. It can be barely called a structure even. It's so beautiful. It's like just the flow of spiraling movements dancing together. And feel that movement for a while in your body. Create that invitation of the spiral to meet in your body, spirit meeting itself in human form. And realizing, remembering through you that it is sovereign, that everything has ever been has been chosen by that source code, by that first thought. And when you remember that, all the inception has the ability, there's an open space now for that inception to become a divine conception, which is you giving the birth of you in illumined form. So now when you close your eyes and take a few deep breaths, you can feel now this movement we've accessed just now. You being a part of the circle and you being in the circle. So when you breathe the I am, you're the one, the sovereign in the circle. You can see this as a movement, right? You can even place it in your third eye. You can place it in your heart. You can place it anywhere you want. Take a breath in, you go in the circle, I am. You go out of the circle, you're holding hands with the group, we are. And just be in that pulsation for as long as it feels natural and good for you. You might experience some tingling sensations, maybe some symptoms, doesn't matter. But overall, when you do exercise in a repetitive way, that you allow your body to once again feel that which is so natural for it to access at all times. Not just have momentary, fleeting experiences of bliss and then, oh, I'm back into my confined space. But this is the new multidimensional cognition. It's constant, it's pulsating. It's a constant and yet it's pulsating. So you see, it's not a defined constant. It's a constant that's in an open space. It's the truth that's flexible. It's in and out, in breath, out breath. And in that space, allow yourself to meet the knower within you and feel the complete understanding. Almost you're watching from a very expanded perspective, this whole happening, unfolding, all the battles, all the clashing wills, all the dualistic programs. Simply observe them and say, thank you. Thank you for showing me my way. Thank you for showing me that the only way out of this is in. And as I go in, I go deep, 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 and I'm not afraid. And the deeper I go, the more that I know. And sometimes I have to dive really, really deeply, and that's okay. But my soul knows, and I have trust. And feel yourself and your body fully relaxed, open, and you can even do a very simple invocation. I am my own sovereign being. My own sovereignty serves as an integral process of the whole. It is my gift to humanity that I wake up to my sovereign being, to my primordial source nature, through the source code that my life is gifted into matter. And knowing that I'm a timeless, infinite being that has an experience of itself in this form right now, in this very way, in order to pulsate back this living essence, this living substance of life force, of spirit, and to animate myself through it in an unconditional relationship, interdependent relationship, where spirit breathes with matter, it animates matter. Therefore, it can never be confined in it. When something feels that it's confined, it's still a limited aspect of who we truly are. But it's a minute aspect of that which is much larger, because spirit never fully can be contained. So just call forth and feel, just call back, meet that aspect of you that was never ever confined in any space, in any body, in any hologram, and meet that aspect. And that is your spirit component. And I will bring forth that spirit component through what we call the soul creatrix, bringing it to the body and the body personality, and feel that triad, feel that triangulation of life, once again reestablished in a harmonious way. It's flowing, all aspects are flowing one with the other. All the layers are, in a way, they're breathable, but they're also impenetrable by anything that goes against the very nature of unity. So the only way out is in, and the only way to emanate sovereignty is to become sovereign from within. Know these words, know your service to this process, and wake up to reality in real time as it is. It's nothing scary. It might feel intense for human processing, and that's okay. We hold no judgment over that. We don't have to teach or convince anyone. We can share like I've shared in this course. And that's it. We've done enough. But mostly we do our inner work. We dive very much deep within to discover the nature of who we truly are. And remember that we are source. Not an idea of source, but actually literal source, essence itself. Presenting uniquely individual through each one of us as we are. And that makes us sovereign. And it makes us beautiful, unique aspects of creation and the way life flows uniquely through us. So anyway, I would like to thank you for participating in this course, for being brave enough to, stick through it all this time, to manage to find your way to the end of it. I hope you enjoyed the course, that you will join me in the new human body template course, and that you will use your sovereignness, the highest gift of life and liberation, to what's happening here on this planet and beyond. And as always, I send you so many blessings with love, wisdom, and power. And if you want to share the energy exchange in your own way, through your own love expression, so that you're not just receiving, but you're also offering a gift of love and doing this reciprocal energy exchange, you're welcome to do so. All the links are always down below. Thank you for sharing the love, for being here, for being courageous beings of light. Here at this time, immense times of immense change. We are that change. I bless you. I'll see you